Hi folks, so today we are in session with the author of 10 inspirational novels and the winner of 20 international accolades, Priya Kumar.
Thank you.
So Priya, I recently read your book, The Calling, and I was stumped at how amazing and inspirational it was.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that.
It was unbelievable to hear that you shelved it for 4 years.
Yeah, 4 years.
Why did you stop yourself from putting it out there in the world?
Actually, I wrote the book in 2012, I think. And while everybody said, whoever read the story, they said, it's a great story and you should put it out and so on, but I'm used to hearing all these compliments, so compliments don't sway me. I am never ever in that position where somebody tells me, this is superb, you should do it. And I say, yeah, oh my God, and I should do it. I don't get overwhelmed by compliments. I go by my own truth. Because I think the first person to know if you've done a great job is you. And any creative person such as you, you're a writer and you can resonate with what I'm saying, that when you touch upon something really beautiful, whether it's a painting or it's music or it's a story, you know where that benchmark is, or what came into your universe. And sometimes it's difficult to put it into words. Sometimes it's difficult to put it into context and perspective, but you're not there. You're not there. So as much as everybody told me, oh, it's beautiful and amazing and you should publish it, I knew I was not there. The chapter that you called me upon where Arjun meets himself, that was a missing chapter.
I was so stumped. I had to call her and tell her how much I loved the chapter. I won't spoil it for y'all because y'all have to read it to know which chapter it was. But anyway, so what made you put that chapter in?
Well, that was the missing thing. And, I needed distance because sometimes you're so involved in the story or you're so involved in that creative project that you're not able to get it. So it needs distance. And for me, it took 4 years of distance to actually get it. It is when an ex-employee called me and said, hey, why didn't you ever put that book out? And I said, okay, let me read it one more time. And that's when I got it. And everybody who had read the first version of the manuscript and then they read the final book and they said, good, you waited. So that's how it came 4 years late.
So how did you come up with the idea of the book? It is the story and all, it's very inspirational, it's very spiritual. Is it anything out of your own life?
Well, all stories are out of your own life. Any author who's saying this book is fiction is lying. It could be something that I wanted to do, never did, but still it is mine. It is an experience I wanted to take, or it just it draws inspiration from your life. But this was way back, I forget the year, I'm very bad with numbers. For me, the past is just one flat line. It just could be any time and any year. I envy the people who say it was back in 1973, 4th of March. I can't remember dates for the love of God. For me, past is past. How does it matter if it was yesterday or 20 years ago? So I don't remember when, but this is really long time ago, maybe 15, 20 years ago. I had gone into the Himalayas to Shivpuri. Okay, and we were doing White River rafting. It was a gang of friends and my team, and we all had gone to do that. And it was really cold. So we had this little stopover in the middle of the rafting, and while everybody was eating, I just didn't feel like eating. I was suddenly exposed. That was my first trip into the Himalayas, and it was. You're suddenly exposed to this space, this grandeur where the eagles are the size of humans, and for the first time I was like, oh my God, this is like heaven, where am I living, kind of thing. So while everybody was having lunch, I was standing by the sandy mud, which was warm, and I saw that at the edge of the river, while the river was flowing down, there was this stream of water that had an upward flow. It was so magical. I thought, oh, I am a part of a spiritual, I don't know, a revelation or something. But then there is a scientific reason why the river flows upward from a certain direction.
I read about it,
Yeah. So I said, wow, and I began to follow the trail. And while I followed, the rock suddenly protruded to block it, which means now if you had to go this way, you have to step onto the slippery rocks and go. But I was so curious. I mean, you're already at the Ganges. So I said, okay, if I fall and die, it's the perfect place. I mean, this is where people come anyway. So I just couldn't be at the wrong place at the wrong time. I'm at the right place. It's just about the timing. So I climbed on the rock and I started to walk, and if you've read The Calling, there is this exact sequence where Arjun gets onto the rocks to see that blue hand.
But apparently he falls in the river.
Yeah, he falls in the river.
That did not happen with you.
No. I didn't see any blue hand, but I was just curious, where is this upward stream taking me? So I climbed and I was going and nobody saw me. Like everybody was so busy eating and doing their own number. And as I went across to the rock, I was stumped and stunned and with the image that I saw. It was a sadhu, maybe an Aghori sadhu, I don't know.
Okay.
But it was a sadhu covered with ash, a huge bun, exactly like in The Calling. That's the exact description.
Okay.
Except that he didn't have so many rudraksh, just had one rudraksh mala. And that sight is still ingrained in my memory that it gives me shivers every time I think of it. I have tried to Google. I haven't found that impression ever. I mean, I find so many sadhus and so on, but that image of that guy sitting, skinny fellow, all bones, and his stomach was curved inward. It was almost hollow, that almost touching the spine. For real, like that. There was no breath. And I don't know how long I stood there, whether it was 10 seconds or whether it was 20 minutes or it was a few days. Like it was so hypnotic. And not only that, his hand, there is this stick, this U-shaped stick which these sadhus used to put their elbow on. Yes. So there was this stick which was there and his hand was like this. Now what was peculiar was that he had, let's say, a proportion of bones and muscle, but just this part was only bone.
You could see the bone.
It was only bone, there was no muscle, which means what that tells me is that if your body is in proportion and only this much is bone, then how long would his hand have been in this direction or position for it all to have drained and been there? And I was telling somebody this, that he had ash, he was ash smudged, but it was not fresh. So if you ever have seen a car which is, has a blanket of dust on it, and then it rains, and then it forms these rain dust patches,
got it.
like that, it was a weather beaten layer of ash. And he just sat there and as I stood there watching, the question comes, now what? Now what shall I do? Shall I wake him up because he was in deep trance or whatever it was, or meditation or sadhana as I have called it in my book? And I don't remember coming back from there. Like I remember exactly step by step, every single step I remember till I saw him. But I have no memory of how I turned around and I came back, as if I am still there, that I never returned. And although I came back and I'm sitting here, I always had that thing, hey, I want to ask him a few questions. I want to ask what is going on in his head. I mean, today, even if a person looks listless and blank, you ask him, kya soch raha hai? What are you thinking? Because you have an idea of what he's thinking.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what is he doing there? He hasn't eaten. He's connected to something, some force. And that curiosity led me back to Shivpuri several times. Like I went there so many times.
Looking for the sadhu.
Looking for anybody. Looking for, I don't know if I would meet him again or who, but I just wanted to find another sadhu or him again to ask him a few questions, So I went back on the pretext of holiday, on the pretext of workshop, on the pretext of white river rafting, and I never ever found one again. So I was asking people, यहाँ पे वो साधु बैठते हैं, and everybody there will tell you बहुत सारे हैं. The entire Himalayas and the rock faces are filled with sadhus, but somehow you can't see them. You can't see them. So I never found that sadhu back again. And so I wrote The Calling to complete that incomplete interaction of whatever I wanted to ask him and talk to him. So The Calling is my relationship, my meeting, my encounter with that sadhu completed.
Brilliant. I mean, you totally just brought him to life, as if you just had a rich interaction with him, in fact.
Yeah, like in a parallel universe, I met him and I knew why I met him and got what I had to. And I think that is a writer's privilege. Everybody should be a writer. You know, you can create another world with what if. You know, you didn't marry that girl, come on, you can in a story and see what it would turn out to be and so on. So yeah, that is how the idea for The Calling came out.
That's brilliant. You seem pretty good at making characters like that through the parallel universe paradigm. So when you wrote this story, did it speak to you? How was your connection, your relationship with this story?
Well, all stories speak. You know, I mean, I start writing as a writer. So I think I am a writer only for the first few hours where I'm putting it all together, building the context. After that, every character just takes over. So if you would have asked me in the beginning, oh, okay, so what is going to be the interaction with the sadhu? I have no clue. As a writer, my job is to create this character Arjun, is to create this character the sadhu, get them to meet and then they take over. You know, it's like matchmaking. That I have found these two characters, the stars match, got them together. Now it's your journey happily married after. Happily married after.
Happily married.
Okay, happily married. So I got them together, and then this whole play of the relationship started, and that's when I become a witness. Capturing what's happening between them. You know, it's no longer a writer, then you're an eyewitness, just
that is a
noting
zone
down.
that belongs to only a creative person.
Exactly, that zone where you have a whole new parallel universe going on, and you have the greatest job in the world to know both the characters where each one may not know each other. So you are that supreme primary force which knows what's going on in his head, what's going on in his head, and what the future is. I think it's a great place to be. So yes, the story starts to talk to me after a while, and I know it's amazing when it starts to talk to me. And you know, it's interesting you asked me this question, because when a story is talking, it's also addressing something, a missing link or a question or a problem that I have. That's why it's talking to me. You know, because at this moment there's no reader. It is when the book comes to your hands, the story talks to you. And I bet you my life, what it did for me and what it did for you is two different things totally. You know, so while it was talking to me, I was becoming a better person. I was getting a lot more insights, beautiful insights on how life should be and how a great life is lived and so on and so forth. So, and I always say this, that every story has made me a better human being, that I am the first primary beneficiary of that zone, of that character or of that thought.
So talking about characters and how you shape them, by this book I can totally say you're pretty good at them.
Everyone's a character. You know, I think you get good at creating characters when you've totally estimated your own self. You know, and that I think takes a lot of honesty. An author, as much as we are creating a story, and the story fiction, another word for fiction is lie, as much as that is fiction and in the words of the reader not true, but to make a character you first have to be honest about who you are, about what your aspirations are, what your weaknesses are, what your strengths are. It's literally, you have to know yourself so well to be able to create another you, to create another person who also has either that which you don't, actually a lot of times that which you don't. Like, my characters are far superior than I can ever be.
Oh, you're lying. You're lying.
I'm telling the truth, because in one of my stories there was also a psycho pilot who killed a lot of people.
So, yes.
So it's true.
I will go with you.
I will go
Another
with you.
brilliant book.
Thank you. So I think making a character is also knowing yourself as a character, and from that stems a whole beautiful world of creation. And you also understand that you are also in some way a reflection of me. Of course, you have your own individuality, but you and I couldn't be sitting in the same frame if we didn't have something uniquely similar. So by that virtue, everyone you meet in that frame, in that radius, has to have something uniquely similar, even if it is my neighbors, we chose the same locality. So we have something similar, and by that point, everybody becomes relatable. So, that's how I have built my characters, out of my own aspirations, out of my own goals, out of my own goodness, which I sometimes seek and am not able to find, or my own traumas, which I have neatly hidden, or my own, dark side, which I never peeped into. So that's where all the characters come from.
So, the character of Arjun then tells a lot about your vulnerabilities, I would say.
Well, of course I am.
What I thought about Arjun was that his strengths weren't as intriguing as his weaknesses and his shortcomings were.
I think I'm a motivational speaker, and the one thing that comes forward, I try to take it as a compliment, is that I come across as very real. I don't work very hard at creating a position of authority or at creating a position, hey, you listen to me and I know it all. The one thing, like I said, I take it as a compliment, is that real, in the sense they're not using the word vulnerable. Like if you even look at my videos and you look at my style, it's very chilled out. I am me, and I feel that I think it's a waste of energy in trying to showcase and portray your strengths, because it's intimidating for people, because then you're trying to give out an impression of perfection.
Right.
But what connects most with people is vulnerability, is that point of real, where the guy says, hey, she's just like me. The minute somebody says she's just like me, now you have that person in your universe. And I'm very unabashed about it. I'm not scared. I don't have any inhibitions or any insecurities that somebody will catch me at my weakest moment, that, oh, I made a mistake. I'm open about it. And similarly, I don't think where the story would go if I would show Arjun as a very strong character, then why does he need the sadhu?
Right.
He doesn't, then his relationship with Chandu would be very different.
Right.
His relationship with the sadhu would be very different. It's when you're vulnerable, that's when you invite those solutions or those strengths into your life to turn that around. And I think that is one of the primary purposes of life, to make the turnaround. That you were born as this little arena of strengths or abilities, and you go as a limitless force. And I think that happens when you are honest about it. How can you fix something that you don't want to say is broken? You have to make that call and say, hey, this is broken, and have it fixed. Otherwise, nobody cares, and you're the only one who's suffering alone. So, that's where that came from.
So the character of the sadhu seemed very mystic and strong. So would you say and wise, of course. So would you say that reflects a strong, mystic and wise side of you?
Thank you for saying that I am wise and mystic. Actually, I am quite like that. Like, you find the sadhu sitting alone. That's my favorite thing to do, is to be alone. Ever since a child, when my parents used to go out for holidays or for parties or for weddings, I'd perpetually be sick. So I was a very sickly child who never felt sick, actually. I've lied so much about one thing, and that is illness, just because I wanted to be alone. So everybody would leave the house and go, and I would be like, oh my God, I can breathe. I can think. So, and I know why I love that is because I know in that place of space and emptiness, there is this feeling of exhilaration, that feeling of I own this. And then there are these ideas and thoughts which I cannot describe to you what kind of world opens up when everyone just disappears. So I totally relate with the sadhu. In fact, I don't mind sitting on a little rock for days. Just give me some food.
Without it. That's the catch.
See, I love food. I mean, they even did a video on me once where I had to say 30 times I'm hungry. So I'm hungry anytime. Just don't even bother asking. Just say, let's eat, and you'll get an answer from me, yes. So, but I know that space of being in your space. I don't call it alone. And I remember I would just be sitting alone and looking at in one direction. And while you may say, what's wrong with you? Because my grandmother used to worry about me. She would come to me and say, beta, tu kya soch rahi hai? But the thing is, I'm not thinking anything. There's a whole world opening up. I'm just witness to some force, and it's riveting. It just roots you in that moment. In that sense, people who are loners, people who like their own space, who are quiet. I'm a motivational speaker, but if you meet me outside of that stage, I'm a very quiet person. You know, I am not a talker. I won't start yapping unless you pay me for it. But I like my space, and I love my solitude. So in that sense, a lot of people tell me, you are very mysterious. Actually, I'm not the kind of person who hides or who will, you know, pull a curtain. Like I told you, I'm very open about my weaknesses, about my vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
But what they mean is that you have this space around you that I'm not able to decipher.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it a mystic or mysterious. And I say, hey, don't try to decipher me, just get into that space yourself and you will find out.
Yeah.
So that sadhu was my relief to acknowledge somebody who has that kind of space and that kind of world of wisdom, because that's the space that it is found in, not in books. Books will give you information, books will give you knowledge, but that source of wisdom is within. The books are only a reminder, aha, oh yeah. How do you know that it's true if you didn't know the truth before?
Right.
You know, so that's my little space and my relationship with the sadhu.
So guys, we're wrapping it here for now. But don't forget to read The Calling, which is the winner of 6 international accolades. And for personally for me, it was an amazing journey and a very motivational, inspiring one that totally is a life-changing experience. At least one that you can learn something from. And I think I'm going to be giving it a read again sometime soon.
Oh, nice! I've read it 8 times.
8 times.
In the final version, because
that's too little.
Yeah, because when you're in the edit zone, you have to read it about 8 times. And I'm really honored that this book singularly has won 6 awards. And every time an award would come by, I'm like, okay. And then my team says, but why aren't you excited? You know, but why aren't you celebrating? And I'm like, but I've already moved on to the next book, you know.
Yeah.
Now this book should win. And by the time that wins, I'm on to the next book. So, but I'm very happy that people have connected with the story. And what that tells me is that you're like-minded, that we are kindred souls, you know, that maybe we were together a lifetime, because I tell you, it takes a lot to resonate with somebody's thoughts. Like, people generally are so quick in arguing and saying, no, but this, but, you know, and so on. And when somebody says, I like that, it just straight up tells me that you are mine. You know, you understand me, or we both have understood each other. And
priceless connection.
Yeah, it's priceless. So the amount of love that I put out, you know, sometimes at my cost. You know, my team says, why are you doing this? I'm like, you don't understand. This person is mine, you know. We have connected through a common thought. How rare is that? I mean, look at even close relationships, how much disagreement there is for people who've known each other for years and so on. And here we are in agreement. We want to meet each other, you know, and I want to know my readers more. So when people write to me and they'll write long emails saying this book did this for me and that for me, I will question them back. Tell me more about you, you know. So I want to know you as well, that I'm sure you've brought me a message. I want it. Yeah, so it's very, very special for me, and I am humbled that my work has got recognition. That was not the intention. Like I said, I wrote the book because I wanted to finish that meeting with the sadhu, and it has connected me with such amazing wise souls, such amazing people, and I'm forever grateful for that. And thank you for reading the book.
Thank you for writing the book.
Oh, you're very welcome.
And I hope you continue to write more such inspirational novels and keep touching more lives like that. And
Oh, thank you. You'll be busy for 9 books.
Yes,
You've read
yes.
1, right? No, you've read 2.
I've read 2.
Yeah, so you have 8 more to go. Till then, I promise you, by the time you finish 8 books, I would have written another one. So nice to be speaking with you.
Lovely to be speaking with you.
Okay, thanks.